It was an extraordinary time. The church was new. The Spirit of God had been poured out, and thousands of people were turning to Jesus. Miracles happened daily. People shared everything they had. They worshipped, broke bread together, and no one went without. They were one in heart and mind. Some sold land or houses and gave all the money to the apostles, not because they were forced, but because love and generosity overflowed from their hearts. It was beautiful, sacred, pure. In this holy atmosphere of unity and truth, something happened that shocked everyone and reminded them that God doesn't just see what we do, He sees why we do it. Among the believers were a man named Ananias and his wife Sapphira. They owned a piece of land, and like others had done, they sold it and brought money to the apostles. But instead of bringing all of it, they kept part back. Now, remember, there was no rule saying they had to give everything. They weren't under pressure. But they pretended to give it all. It wasn't about the amount, it was about the lie. Ananias brought the money to the apostles and laid it at their feet, probably hoping for praise, maybe attention, maybe recognition. But the Holy Spirit revealed the truth. Peter looked at him and said, "Ananias, how is it that Satan has filled your heart that you would lie to the Holy Spirit? You have not lied just to human beings, but to God. Didn't the land belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing?" And at that moment, Ananias fell down and died right there. He didn't even speak. He dropped to the ground. The room fell silent. Fear gripped everyone. No one moved. Some young men came forward, wrapped his body, carried him out and buried him. 3 hours passed. Sapphira came in, not knowing what had happened. Peter turned to her and asked gently, "Tell me, is this the price you and Ananias got for the land?" She smiled, perhaps thinking she'd be praised. "Yes," she said, "that's the price." And Peter said, "How could you conspire to test the Spirit of the Lord? Listen, the feet of the men who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also." In that instant, Sapphira fell down at his feet and died. The same young men returned, found her lifeless body, carried her out, and buried her beside her husband. Great fear seized the whole church and everyone who heard about these events. It wasn't fear in the sense of panic, but holy awe, the kind that reminds us God is holy, the kind that stirs the soul to remember God sees everything. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about how much they gave. It was about the lie, the deception, the desire to appear spiritual without being sincere. God wasn't punishing people for being human. He was protecting the purity of His newborn church. Because in those early days, when the Spirit of God was moving in power, any corruption, any hypocrisy could have destroyed what He was building. So God made it clear, honesty matters, motives matter. You can't lie to the Holy Spirit and expect it to go unnoticed, Ananias. And Sapphira's story is sobering. It reminds us that while people may see the outside, God sees the heart. He knows our motives. He knows our secret conversations. He knows when we act for His glory or for our own. They didn't have to give anything. They could have been honest, but they chose appearance over authenticity, and in doing so, they lied not to Peter, not to the church, but to God. In our own lives, it's easy to pretend, easy to want credit without sacrifice, easy to speak the right words without letting them come from a clean heart. But God invites us to walk in truth, not in fear of punishment, but in the joy of integrity, because God doesn't demand perfection. He desires honesty. So let this story stir us, not just to reflect, but to respond, to bring our whole hearts before God, to be real, to confess where we've played the part without living the truth, to choose light over darkness. Because in the end, the greatest offering we can bring is not gold or silver, but a truthful, surrendered heart.